Good people, welcome to Fiddlehead Fiddle Lessons. So here's a lesson on something I call transposition loops. It's a very powerful practice strategy to help develop your ear and learn things more deeply. Basically, you take a small musical chunk, play it, and then transpose it to a different scale. And then you put those two pieces together to make a bigger loop and practice that. So let's do an example. Say you're learning Shady Grove. So this tune is in the key of D Dorian. And say you're trying to learn the first quarter of the tune. Once you get the basic idea and you've worked out the basic transitions across the strings and can play it roughly in tune, then to practice with the transposition loop, the next step would be, instead of starting that first quarter on open D, try starting it on open A. You've now moved that little piece into a different scale, A Dorian instead of D Dorian. And once you get that somewhat figured out and you got it, then you alternate between the original key of D Dorian, starting open D, to A Dorian, starting open A. And keep doing that in a loop. Keep doing that in a loop. I call that a transposition loop. So you can do this with smaller or bigger pieces. You could do it with the whole tune, but where I think it's most powerful is if you do it with very small pieces. So using the same example of Shady Grove, first quarter, what's really hard in that part is these four notes, D1, open, G3, 1. Right? Because the open D, you're just doing a hoedown rhythm on that. It's not that hard. So now we can focus our practice and really hone in on the technical challenge of D1, open, G3. And so we practice that in a loop. And then we transpose that. So instead of starting at D1, start at A1. Do it a few times, maybe loop on that piece. And then when you feel confident, put the two pieces together into a transposition loop. So start it on D1, and then A1. And keep looping. See if you can add rhythmic variation. A simple idea is to just play two notes instead of one note. Hoedown. Split hoedown, in which we split it across two notes. 1, open, G3, 1. Cool. So you may be wondering, why do this? Why bother with this weird sounding big thing, transposition loops? What the, who the, why the? So what this does, okay, there's a few benefits. First off, I think it really helps you to learn something more deeply and remember parts of tunes. A lot of you have written to me saying like, I have trouble remembering a whole tune. Well, if you practice transposition loops on each section of a tune, like say the first quarter, second quarter, third quarter, fourth quarter, then on bigger sections, first half, second half, then the whole tune. If you do that, your brain is going to have a much richer picture of that tune. You're going to learn it way more deeply. You're more likely to remember it later. These loops are also great ways to work out technical problems. So if you, maybe by starting it on A1 instead of D1, your fingers figure out and learn something about that little challenging thing that helps them do it on the D1. Does that make sense? More generally, the more you do this, the more unconscious learning happens. Your fingers are learning things that you won't even notice if you practice creatively like this. So another way to think about it is that your fingers are mapping out the fingerboard, and the more opportunities you give them. So we take this little piece and then we play the same basic fingering starting on a different string. They're going to start to, your fingers are constantly comparing and contrasting. They're going to be like, oh, this is how first finger feels different. So for example, third finger feels different, much different across the strings. G3 versus E3. Very different feeling. So by practicing the same little bit, you help your fingers to map things out. Finally, these transposition loops will expand your musical mind. Just imagine like rays of lasers coming out of my ears and brain when I say that. Expand your musical, yeah, sorry. So basically with transposing these little pieces, they'll help you to more naturally transpose tunes in playing settings. Say you're playing with a singer. This is especially helpful for playing with singers because people's voices are in certain ranges. They sometimes favor a certain key. So you may be used to playing Shady Grove in D, but somebody wants it in A because that's where their voice is. You'll naturally be able to transpose more easily if you make it a practice. Does that make sense? If you're constantly transposing everything you do, then it will be more natural for you to do that in sessions and playing with singers and stuff. The other thing, the way in which it expands your mind musically is that I think it makes you a lot more creative. It makes you hear music more deeply. It helps you to listen to music with a more fine-grained perception. Okay, so now that we've talked a little bit about the benefits, why we do it, let's just give another example. So this is a harder example. Let's use the same tune, Shady Grove, and the first quarter. So before we transposed it to a different string, we used the same exact fingering, starting in open A. Now what we're going to do is transpose it to a scale in which we'll do a totally different fingering. It'll be more challenging. You're going to feel your brain sort of buzzing when you do it. So now we're going to start it instead of on open D, which is D Dorian. We're going to start it on D1, which is E Dorian. Right? You can hear that it's the same piece. Your brain is, again, unconsciously learning this melody much more deeply by doing it there. It may take you a little while to figure out this piece in the new scale with the new fingering. So take time to just do it, starting on D1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 2, 1, open, G2. Once you get it, then do the transposition loop. So start open D. Now D1. Now back to D. And if you're a more advanced player, you can take this to much more advanced territory by playing a series of chromatic notes. So then you could do F. That's F Dorian. And then F sharp Dorian starting D2. Right? So this is a powerful practice. Point is, this could be used by beginners doing the simplest tune. You could do it with Shady Grove. That's the first chord of Shady Grove. You could do a transposition loop to A2. Right? So anybody could do this, and a more advanced player could do multiple transpositions. You could get very creative with it and practice very challenging things, is the point. More generally, this idea of a transposition loop is part of a bigger class of practice strategy that I call practice loops. The basic idea of a practice loop, you alternate between something that's easy for you and something harder, something more challenging. So say, go back to the Shady Grove example, the original key of starting on D is the easy part. And then the challenge is to do it in the transposed place. So I have other lessons on practice loops. I have a main lesson on it, and then I'm creating lots of lessons on different variations of that, more specific strategies. So let's sum up, shall we? To make a transposition loop, take a small musical chunk, transpose it, and then alternate between the original and the transposed piece. This helps you to work out technical problems, train your ear, and learn things more deeply. Cool, so please give this a try. Let me know how it goes. Send me a message, write a comment. Just let me know if it's helpful. Let me know if it's not helpful, whatever. But most of all, I hope you're having fun playing. I hope you find a way to make practice of these fundamental things fun. Because then if it's fun, you'll do it every day. You won't have to force yourself, right? Okay, see you later. Thanks for watching. Go to fiddlehead.com for a progressive, step-by-step course outline, color-coded tabs, play-along tracks, sheet music, and much more. Thanks for watching the videography. Excellent! And don't forget to subscribe. Thanks.